enough here, and I can't wait for 5,000 more. Anyway, I have a solved case for you this evening. Unfortunately, this is another case that I really wanted to title Love Can Be Deadly. Just teenagers. Anyway, so we're gonna bounce back and forth between two girls at the beginning of this story, and their names are Rachel Wade and Sarah Ludemann. They actually grew up just blocks away from each other in a small town called Pinellas Park, Florida. Hopefully I am not saying that wrong. They were both beautiful girls. They went to the same high school. They ran in similar circles, but they were not friends. They were pretty much polar opposites, in fact. Rachel was 19, a petite girl, fiercely independent, a waitress at Applebee's with her own apartment. And Sarah was 18, still in high school, still living at home with a curfew. She loved animals and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. Sarah grew up in a working-class neighborhood with her parents, Gay and Charlie Ludemann. They were married 16 years before conceiving their only child, their gift from God and miracle baby, Sarah. Sarah's father drove a taxi cab and described her as definitely a daddy's girl. He said that he used to take her in the cab with him, and all of his clients knew who she was. I can imagine that that was quite fun for them. These two girls did have one thing in common, though. A boy named Josh Comancho. Rachel had a pretty much lifelong history with Josh. They went to elementary school together, but it wasn't until high school that the sparks flew between them. I don't have a lot of good to say about Josh. Everything that I read about him, nobody says anything good. He was 19, described as a player and a deadbeat dad to a toddler. He loved being the bad boy that all the girls wanted. He didn't have a job, and, well, I guess you could say his job was posting selfies of him in muscle t-shirts, but he still lived at home with his parents. Sarah had never had a real boyfriend, and this would all change one day when she went into a local Chick-fil-A restaurant where Josh was a cook at the time. He reportedly came out of the back smelling like French fries, gave Sarah a wink, and because no one had ever really flirted with her before, she was just completely blown away that this guy was interested in her. Josh and Sarah began dating right away. Sarah's parents did not approve of him from the get-go. Her dad apparently called him the rat, which I thought was so funny. Her parents respected Sarah's choices, and they did take the time to get to know him. But they soon realized her grades were slipping, she was skipping school, and her life was just centered around Josh. Everything else got pushed aside. I even read that she transferred schools to be closer to him, but I couldn't find any validity of that fact, and I find it hard to believe that her parents would allow that. Her parents at first thought, it's just young love and it'll be over soon, but they were very, very wrong. Rachel had a pretty normal childhood with a loving family. Her dad was a truck driver and her mom was a special ed teacher. Rachel began to rebel against her parents' rules in her early teenage years, but what teenager doesn't really? starts putting up her own pictures with Josh instead of just, breaking up with him because he's cheating on you. And Rachel doesn't like it one bit. This is the beginning of a vicious, cyber smackdown between these two girls. All the while, Loverboy continues to date both of them. And the loud neighbor is awake at 7 in the morning. Sarah had a midnight curfew, which meant that Josh would hang out with her until then. And after that, he would sleep over at Rachel's place. Now they had quickly found out about each other, and they started sending each other messages on MySpace, warning the other to leave Josh alone. In one instance on her MySpace page, Rachel wrote, "When we first met, I was madly in love. Since then, things have changed. You called me names, you slept around. I deserve so much better." Sarah, as nice as she was, commented on that post, "He found better." Rachel became enraged with jealousy. She managed to get Sarah's phone number from Josh. She probably stole it from his phone. And then the harassment began. Rachel called Sarah fat, said she looked like a dog. Sarah assumed Rachel was just an angry ex-girlfriend of Josh's, but that was because Josh had led her to believe that she was the only one he was seeing. But the harassment got worse and became unbearable. I'm not really going to go into the details of the things that these two girls called each other and said to each other, but Sarah decides to take it into her own hands and she calls Rachel. And this is where reality soaks in. She is being played. She feels completely betrayed, but strangely, her anger is not directed at who it should be. It's directed at Rachel. Sarah shows up at Rachel's shift at Applebee's, making inappropriate lyrics. I guess they had karaoke night. Directed them towards Sarah. Directed them towards Rachel. Too many names. She would sit in Rachel's section at work and deliberately, knock things over, so Sarah had to clean them up. Oh my gosh. So Rachel had to clean them up. In retaliation, Rachel would spit and put hair in Sarah's food. There was also an incident, supposedly, there's no record of it, at a Taco Bell, where Sarah and her friends sprayed Rachel with a lot of silly string. And if you've ever been sprayed by that, sometimes it's hard to clean off. So, after months of online taunting and teenage bickering, it of course all comes to a head. Sarah shows up at Rachel's apartment. A neighbor tells police that she began screaming threats at Rachel. Rachel waits for her to leave, is completely terrified, grabs a knife from her kitchen, and runs to her car. According to her friend, she took a knife from the kitchen because she didn't know who was still outside, potentially waiting for her. She takes this knife to her ex-boyfriend Xavier's house because no one will suspect that she's there. Sarah, still angry, leaves Rachel's apartment and goes over to play video games with Josh and his friends. Around midnight, Sarah's dad texts her about her curfew, but before she can leave, one more text message comes in. Rachel texts Josh and says, "I know you're with her." Sarah is infuriated and she is worried that Rachel will swoop in on Josh as soon as he's alone. She reluctantly leaves and starts to head home, but first she stops to get a bite to eat with Josh's sister and another friend. Now, teenage instigators take it upon themselves to let her know that Rachel is nearby. Our friends Sarah, instead of going to McDonald's to get a midnight snack, turns around and goes to Xavier's house. Sarah is just on the brink. She is looking for trouble, and she finds it in Rachel Wade. She pulls up to this house in her minivan, and Rachel comes running at her. They meet in the middle of the street. Sarah throws the first punch, and Rachel ducks her head down and just kind of starts flailing her arms, at least according to her friends. This girl fight lasts only a couple of minutes. It looks like a flurry of fists and hair pulling, but when it's over, Sarah lies bleeding in the street. She's on the ground, bleeding profusely from the chest. Her friend rushes over and presses the shirt to the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Sarah, laying in the middle of the street, bleeding, unable to catch her breath, makes one desperate phone call. Not to her mom or her dad, but to Josh. She then passes out and becomes unresponsive. Paramedics show up and rush her to the hospital, and police begin their investigation, taking witness statements of all the teenagers that watched this happen. Most of them stated that Rachel stabbed Sarah. Police find Rachel nearby this horrific scene. She's casually sitting on a bench smoking a cigarette. The officer was completely shocked by her lack of emotion. By the time Rachel was taken in for questioning, Sarah was pronounced dead at the hospital. One of the stab wounds had reached her heart. Rachel doesn't dispute that she stabbed her love rival, as they called it, but she says it was self-defense. She said, "I went to hit her, but I did not mean to stab her. I'm not going to kill somebody." Rachel claims, and eyewitnesses confirm, Sarah took the first swing, landing 3 punches to Rachel's head. Rachel claims that she forgot that she even had a knife in her hand. She said she just threw her hands up to defend herself. And then police inform her Sarah is dead. Rachel landed just 2 jabs with that steak knife, but one of them pierced Sarah's heart. They charge Rachel with second-degree murder. Prosecutors paint her as this vindictive girlfriend who took the knife with the intent to harm Sarah. Rachel's attorney, Kelly McCabe, said she was standing her ground and she had the right to protect herself against this girl that just kept showing up everywhere. And then prosecutors release a taped phone call in which Rachel is heard threatening Sarah. I can't even repeat most of this, so it says, "I told you to watch your effing back and do not chill with him. Now your butt is mine, and I guarantee you I'm going to effing murder you. I'm going to effing kill you." That phone call was made 8 months before the fatal fight, but pretty much sealed Rachel's fate as well. She was found guilty of second-degree prison murder, and she is sentenced to 27 years in prison. So what about the man in the middle, right? The part that Josh played in this deadly love triangle. He didn't have any charges pressed against him. In fact, he wasn't even there when the crime happened. Both Sarah and Rachel's families lost their daughters, but Gay Ludemann reminded the judge at Rachel's sentencing that their losses were very, very different. to, please call one of these numbers. There is a solution for everything, and it doesn't have to be this one. I don't believe that Rachel didn't realize she stabbed Sarah. I don't think that you run out in the street with a knife in your hand and still say it was self-defense. I mean, I'm not saying she had the intent to kill this girl, and maybe she didn't realize that Sarah was going to come out swinging, but I think when you bring a knife to a fist fight, that there are consequences that need to be had. Am I saying that she should spend 27 years in prison? I mean, she did kill Sarah. I can't imagine just the horror of this. I mean, I can see this fist fight in my head. These two girls just running at each other and everyone else standing around like, whoa. And it happening so fast that no one even had time to break them up. And if it was a smaller steak knife, maybe even people didn't even see it until Sarah was on the ground bleeding. I am not saying that Sarah is 100% the victim in this story either. If she had not sought Rachel out that night, even at her own home where she's supposed to be safe, but then turning around instead of going home and finding this girl, you also bring these consequences upon yourself. Not that you deserve to die, but, you know, she very potentially could have gotten into her own legal trouble that evening. And I have to wonder, was this boy worth it? I mean, what was so great about him? He was cute. There's a million cute guys out there. There's no need to fight a girl for one. If he's low enough that he's cheating on you, then you deserve so much better than that creep. Sorry, I have a real thing against cheaters. Anyway, I know this is a bit of a shorter case this week, but I really wanted to share it with you because sometimes I just can't believe the lengths that people will go through to be with this person that they love, and these girls really took it to the next level. They were really mean to each other. I mean, I had my share of bullying when I was a kid, but I didn't go looking for it either. I kind of feel like they purposely went out of each other's way to, like, show up where Rachel worked. I would never do that. If some girl was bullying me, I would be staying as far away from her as I could and trying not to cause further issues. It's just completely sad to me that this girl lost her life over some boy that she probably wouldn't have even been with in another year, and she really seemed to have her life on straight and plans before she met this guy and got involved with him. I understand kind of being the outcast or the weird girl that boys never flirted with, and you're flattered by the attention, because I was kind of that girl too, but at the same time, I mean, she lost her life, and it's just so tragic to me. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this. I will catch you